Welcome, everyone, to the Zorich Podcast. I am Chris Zorich, and on today's show, we have my personal nemesis, but we can get into that later. We have national champion, Notre Dame, and Kansas City legend, Tim Grunhard. So right now, I'm going to play a little promo video my wife put together. Again, we're a work in progress, so hope you enjoy it. So that kind of gave me shivers up my spine because I remember many years of you knocking the crap out of me. So this is kind of a joyful time for me. You being way in Kansas City, not anywhere around me. So I do appreciate that.
You know what, Chris? You're being way too kind. First of all, thank you so much for having me on your show. Obviously a South Sider, a Chicago legend. Who played for the Chicago Bears, by the way. I am still jealous of you for playing for the Bears. From CVS High School, as I drive by on the Chicago Skyway, when I'm coming from Kansas City, and I look over to my right, and I see the CVS High School that, is probably not the same as it was when you were there, but it's many, many legends coming from that school, including Dick Butkus and Chris Zorich.
Wow, you are so kind.
But listen. You and I have said this many, many times, and we'll get into it, but the games were easy for us because we had each other to go against every day.
Absolutely. Well, we have so much to unpack here, man. I mean, and you kind of started off a little bit by talking about Chicago. Okay, so you went to St. Laurence, and what's amazing, I think, and I guess Holtz apparently didn't want to recruit too far into the other schools because I think he recruited like 15 guys out of St. Lawrence there for his first year, which was amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I think that had to be it because, there was a bunch of scoundrels on that St. Lawrence football team. But you know what? We all went in and we all felt pretty good about ourselves, Chris. And I know you know this story, but so Lou, we were in the first recruiting class for Lou, and he basically started recruiting in January. He was at Minnesota. They went to a bowl game, and
right.
He did such a great job there. But he was hired by University of Notre Dame, and he started his recruiting process a little bit late. And so when the recruiting process was all done, and we got there in the summer, we had our first meeting, and we felt pretty good about ourselves. As I looked over, and there was Mike Stonebreaker, and there was Rod West, and there was Jeff Pearson, and there was Stan Smagala, and there was Pat Terrell, all a bunch of Dean Brown, a bunch of great guys. And we felt pretty good about ourselves. We're in the very first Lou Holtz recruiting class. Well, at that point, Lou walked into the meeting and he said, I want all the guys that I recruited to stand up right now. And at this point, we said, okay, here we go. These are the guys that we're going to build the program around.
Nice.
These are my guys. This is the foundation of Notre Dame football for the next decade. Well, as soon as we all stood up, he looked at us. He gave us that grin. He said, if I had one more month, none of your asses would have been
That's hilarious.
At that point, Chris, and you know Lou as much as I do, that never feel comfortable around Coach Holtz.
You can't. I mean, if that's his first speech to you guys, I mean, I can't believe that. So, all right, so let's back up a little bit before that. Were you always a football guy? I mean, was it big in your household? In your neighborhood, did you play Pop Warner? I mean, how did that work out?
Yeah, well, we always played football. I grew up on the southwest side of Chicago. We had practice over at Monroe Park, which was about 106 and Tallman Avenue.
Nice.
And we'd walk across and, and we did everything over there. We played basketball over there in basketball season. We played baseball over there in baseball and football and even hockey. Even hockey. We played hockey over there. They freeze the parks.
Wow.
I know you remember that. But I was a baseball guy. We were a baseball family. My brother played baseball in Northwestern, and then went on and played in the minor leagues all the way up to AAA. And I thought I was a heck of a baseball player. So I played baseball all the way through high school. Played football, but always kind of thought that baseball was going to be my path. Well, eventually I got a little bit too big to play baseball. Whether it was from eating a lot, and let me go back and I'll tell you when that happened. Okay, so in 1984, there was an Olympics in Los Angeles.
Right.
Okay. Well, if anybody back there, Chris, you probably can remember this. You might be a little bit young, but you probably can remember this. That McDonald's had a promotion, and that promotion was a gold medal was a Big Mac, a silver medal was a fry, and I think a cherry pie or apple pie was a bronze. Well, that was the year the Russians pulled out of the Summer Olympics. So the United States won every medal. So I remember going in with a handful.
Oh my God, I remember that. You're right.
And I ate Big Macs and I ate fries until they told me I couldn't anymore. And then I went to the drive-thru and got some more. And that summer, I put on about 40 pounds.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
And whether it was McDonald's or not, but I like the story because that's when I decided, hey, I'm probably going to be able to play some football. But as you know, Chris, I wasn't one of the elite guys on our team. We had a lot of unbelievable football players, a lot of guys who were ranked in the top 50 in the country on our football team. Jeff Pearson, Paul Galanick, Mike Harris, Stan Spagala, and I were kind of, we had Kurt Gregus, who went on and played at Illinois. We had a lot of good football players. So Lou Holtz offered me a scholarship at Minnesota.
Really?
In the summer.
Okay.
And when all the recruiting was going on, he didn't really call me anymore when he was at Notre Dame. and I was thinking, because the coach before Lou, and I'm drawing a blank out. Faust. Faust didn't want anything to do with me. I was too short.
Really?
I was too short. I was only 6'2 and a half, 6'3", wanted nothing to do with me. He liked those taller linemen. So I get a call, and this God is my witness. I was working at the Walgreens on 56th and Pulaski.
Oh my God!
And somebody said to me, "It's like there's a guy on the phone. He says he's Lou Holtz." I said, "What?" I said, "It's got to be one of my buddies."
Of course.
Right? So I get on the phone. I'm like, "Hello." He's like, "Tim Grunhard, Lou Holtz." I go, "Yeah, sure it is." Yeah, like okay. Yeah,
oh my
sure.
God!
And this guy, he goes, "Tim, Lou Holtz." And at this point, I'm like, oh, hello, coach. He goes, "I just want to let you know that I'm going to extend my scholarship from Minnesota to Notre Dame for you. And I want you to come on a visit." And at that point, went on a visit. And, my parents said to me, they came on the visit and they said, "You know what, Tim and Chris, my mom and dad, you met them before." And they said, "This is your decision. We're not going to tell you where to go to school. This is your decision. It's your future." So they went on the visit, and I went there. And as well as I do, Notre Dame is always the worst visit because there's nothing to do. Every other school takes you to these bars and takes you to all these parties and all these sororities and fraternity parties and all that. And at Notre Dame, I think we went to the huddle. I think that was our big over there at the student union. So I said, "Man, this really is kind of boring." But I love Notre Dame. I always loved Notre Dame. But I'm gonna make a decision whether I want to go to the University of South Carolina or maybe Texas or Notre Dame. I'm still thinking about it. And I get up in the morning. My parents said, "How was your visit?" I said, So he goes, "When are you going to sign?"
That's crazy.
To Notre Dame. Yeah.
So you were thinking about Texas, South Carolina? Were those?
Yeah, it was Texas, South Carolina. I took a visit to Missouri. There. And, I was never really recruited by Illinois or any of those schools. The Big 10 schools didn't recruit me. A lot of the Big 8 schools back then. And Michigan was another school that recruited me. Illinois and those schools. So, I took some visits in some crazy places. Absolutely did.
Oh, my God.
I think it was just
absolutely hilarious.
Hey, Chris, I think it was just to get out of the south side of Chicago.
Well, it was cool. You had a chance to my first recruiting trip to Illinois. I flew, and I'd never been on a plane before.
That's awesome. Hey, when I got past the Des Plaines River, I thought I was in heaven. I didn't know where that.
Well, all right. So the idea that you have a chance to go to Notre Dame, I mean, did it seem odd that, like, literally, and I'm being a little facetious, I mean, half your team got scholarships. Like, I mean, we were just like, hey, what's up? I'm like, hey, I'll see you in an hour, in South Bend. I mean, what was that like?
Yeah, it was good and bad. It was good because you knew some people there, but it was also bad because, you almost felt like you were slated. You were almost kind of slotted with these guys. And
right.
Jeff and I were roommates. Jeff and I really didn't get along very well in high school. And then all of a sudden we're roommates. So they thought we got along. And that didn't go very well. Our personalities down, in the south side of Chicago our personalities on the offensive defensive line, as we'll talk about a little bit later, very competitive. We were very competitive.
Right.
So after the first semester, I found this little short leprechaun looking guy named Bill Fitzgerald. And I said, hey, Fitzy, do you need a roommate? And he said, yeah, absolutely. So we roomed together pretty much the rest of my 4 years there. Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. So, I mean, yeah, Stan, and so there was and I don't want you to kind of call anybody out on any names, but there was a time when I think there were 6 of you guys, right, from St. Lawrence?
Yes, there was 6.
And by the summer, as y'all went to summer school beforehand, by the end of summer, there were only 3 left, right?
3.
2?
Yep.
3.
3. It was Pearson, Smagala, and I.
Right.
Mike Harrison actually had a little medical issue.
Right. I remember Mike. Right.
And then Paul Galanick, he had some issues, but let's just leave it at least some issues. So there were 5 of us. There wasn't 6. There was 5 of us, and then Jeff decided he wanted to transfer.
Right. To Michigan State. Remember that? Yeah.
Stan and I were kind of the throw-ins. Now remember, and I know you've talked to Stan about this. Stan was offered by Faust because he was the fastest dude in camp.
Right, and then didn't Holtz get out of here or something like that?
Holtz was like, I can't believe this guy has a scholarship, and he basically said, you know what, at Notre Dame we're going to honor what and they honored it, and he basically told Stan that he's never going to see the field, and then I was kind of a throw in, but I think it motivated us to really kind of show what we were all about, and it made us better players and better people.
Well, I mean, when you think about that, I mean, you had Foley. I mean, there was a large contingent of Chicago kids, like Holtz's first and second class.
Yeah, well, I mean, you were part of that too.
Right.
But you also remember the guys from St. Rita. You got Zagalski and Zaleski
and
Foley.
Right.
And then Kevin McShane from Joliet Catholic.
Yes.
And then then you and I know that you had Joe Allen. And
absolutely. I mean, literally his first 2 years, it was almost like, hey, because I mean, kind of the same story. Like I didn't make any All-American teams. I mean, I was okay at best, and so I tell this funny story when the recruiting process started for me. The first letter I got was from Indiana State, and I remember opening it up, and I called the guy from my coach's office when I got it. And I was like, hey, I'm coming. And he was like, huh? I was like, yeah, I just got this letter. I'm coming. He was like, wait a minute, hold on a minute. I was like, well, yeah, you guys are up. He's like, yeah, you know what? Why don't you hold on a little bit? You might get some bigger schools, but we thank you for thinking about it. And it was funny because I forgot his name, but he would always tell that story how I was the first one, or I'm sorry, he was the first one to offer me, and I called and I was like, I'm in. But it's interesting though, because I mean, and I think that's kind of Holtz's motivation. He winds up getting, I mean, even Michael Stonebreaker, right? I mean, and even Dean Brown. I mean, I don't think these guys are like big time All-Americans, and then they come there and they flourish. They're amazing players. Now you have John Foley, who obviously was Mr. Everything. So I mean, outside, you have folks like him, but then you had other folks who like literally no one knew of.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that was one of the things the coach wanted to do. He wanted to make sure he got some guys in that were overachievers, guys that had some toughness, guys that had some focus, guys that had a little bit of want to. And I think that was smart. I think that he was able to mold us and kind of develop us into the players that we were. We didn't come in finished products at all. We did not. But with one thing we had, Chris, and we had toughness, and we had a lot of things that the intangibles of. First of all, most of us, but not all of us, love the University of Notre Dame. Loved being there. Love the students. Love being a part of the community. You know, we lived and died with that university, and we were part of that university. University was part of us. And I'm not saying the guys nowadays are that way or not. I don't know. I kind of know. My son is involved, but most of the time it's just a little bit of a separation. It's just natural the way it kind of is now.
Sure.
But it wasn't that way, Chris. You know, I know that you room with some different guys and had a bunch of different buddies. I've seen you walking around the quad with all kinds of guys that were, just regular students or guys who were in the band and all that kind of stuff, because that's the way we rolled, because we were a part of the university and we loved the place. And you know what? We played for the university. We didn't play to try to become professional athletes. I never even thought about being a professional athlete until about my middle of my junior year, when somebody said, "Hey, you might be able to play professional football." I said, "Really? Well, this is pretty good. I'll just take this, and if it ends with this, I'm okay."
Right. Well, it's interesting that you say that, because and it's really interesting because, I mean, the way Holtz kind of coached us and used kind of all his crazy psychological techniques and shit. I mean, it was interesting because, like, for me, going on to the next level, even though, don't get me wrong, I mean, I had a blast at the Bears, right? Hometown kid. I mean, I had a great time, but it was interesting. It was different. I mean, because in college, I played for you. I played for Tim Ryan. I played for Dean Brown. I mean, I played for my friends.
Yeah.
And when we got to the next level, it was more of a job. I remember the first. I was on special teams the first game of the year. We lost, and I'm sitting in the locker, and I'm just dejected. We lost, And the guy's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Man, we lost." He's like, "Are you kidding me, man? Put your clothes on. We're going to this party." and I was amazed because, I mean, in school, well, not if we lose, we're done, right? So the pressure and the expectation at Notre Dame is so high that, going on to the professional, and again, had a great run, but it wasn't the same. And kind of what you were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about psychological games that Lou Holtz played, I'll never forget. And I think I was maybe a sophomore or junior. I probably think I was a junior, because I think you were a sophomore. And there was one practice that I had a great nickname for you. And I don't know if you remember. I used to call you Full Go Zorro. Because you always went full go. I mean, I'd be beat up from the game, and I'd come out on a Wednesday, and you'd be going full speed and just kicking the crap out of people. And I'll never forget one day. I mean, you were just handing it to me. I mean, you were making every play, and Lou Holtz said, "Stop the practice, get your asses out, go stand back here." And I think Joe Allen went to run. He goes, "Nope. We're playing without a right guard."
Yeah. Yep.
We haven't blocked anybody from right guard position anyway, so we're playing without one. So I'm thinking, sitting back there, and I got like tears coming down my eyes. I'm like, oh my God. And Chris, this is God's honest story. Chris, instead of being, just y'all stand up, nobody's blocking me. He goes in and he lays out Tony Rice, lays him out. Right? Like, there's nobody blocking him. He lays him out, right? I was like, oh my God. And then I felt even worse. And he goes, "Well, your ass wasn't blocking him anyways." So that was the kind of psychological games that he played. And because, you just never could be comfortable. You never could take a day off. And that's why we became so good. And that's why, listen, I was lucky enough to play 11 years in the NFL. And I took that attitude, and I took that work ethic to the NFL. And there's a lot of guys who wouldn't do that or couldn't do that, didn't know how to do that.
Absolutely.
And that's why I wasn't bigger, faster, or stronger than anybody else, but I had that attitude, and I had that determination, and I knew how to practice, and I knew how to study, and I knew how to play, because that's what we did for 4 years at Notre Dame.
Well, here's the thing. You called me Full Go Zorro, and I hated that. I absolutely hated that. Because, and I'll tell you why I was full go. Because, and I know absolutely when it was, I didn't play at all as a freshman. And I was playing nose guard, Coach Holtz had moved me, and I was pissed. And I would see, and this will never leave my mind. And even guys in my class, before games at that time, they would send everybody to the Moreau Seminary.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you got 105 guys in the team. I mean, everybody's not playing. I didn't play. And I remember after our team meeting, after we would go through the relaxation period, everything else.
Your mind controls your
exactly.
body.
When we would leave the Loftus, our practice facility, there was guys who were going on the bus to go to Monroe, and then there were another group of people, which I was in, and we were walking back to our dorms. And I never turned around, and I was like, man, this is never, ever, ever going to happen. I didn't even feel in it. It's bad, but I was 18. I didn't feel part of the team. And so I made a promise that every time I hit that field, I was going to give 100%. And unfortunately, on Wednesdays was my game day, right? Because that was the only time I had a chance to go against the big boys.
Unfortunately for me, and you know what? Next time I see Holtz, I'm going to say, don't ever leave Zorro off the bus.
I mean, just put him in there. He'll be fine. Just put him in there.
Oh, but fast forward to, I mean, even when I was a senior and you were a junior, we'd go against each other when the ones went against the ones. And we do that quite a bit in practice. We'd be walking up the tunnel at halftime, and I'd come over and put my arm around you and say, Chris, I said, thanks for getting me ready for this game, because this guy I'm playing against is soft compared to you.
Absolutely. I mean,
and you know what? I mean, we'd go in that game, and I'd be like, oh, okay, I got to go against this guy. He's going to be as good as Zorro or better. And he wasn't. He wasn't even close. So you just, you'd be like, wow, this is easy. And there's nothing better to being prepared. When I was coaching high school football, I said, listen, you guys are gonna walk on the field. You're gonna be the best prepared mentally and physically team. You may not be bigger, faster, stronger, but you're gonna be ready mentally and physically. And we were ready mentally and physically because we were tested every day in practice by the guys that, and we loved it. We joke around about it and all that kind of stuff. But you know what? Every day, I wish we could go back over there. You and I would probably fall down and pull a hamstring after one step. But it'd be great to be able to do that just one more time, to go against each other. And those were fun days. And then that's what makes football. It's not about the bank account, and it's not about the rings. It's not about all all being All-American and all those things. It's about the relationships that you build. And, after all these years, I don't see you very much, but we can go back to each other because we have that bond and that relationship and that friendship that is so important that you build on the football field. And, you can go right back to that spot where you were at maybe when you were 19, 20 years old. Absolutely.
Absolutely. We're going to ask some of our viewers to send in some questions if they like, but so please send in your questions. But you made a comment before we got started, and you said that our practices were harder than games. Okay. And that was very true, but you had a very special coach. You had Joe Moore.
Yeah.
And can you share a little bit about him to our audience that may not have known anything about him? I had a chance to kind of know him through you, Dean, Tim, and those guys, but please share with our audience what type of guy. I mean, he was, talk about old school. He was the man. But go ahead, please.
Yeah, if you look up old school in the dictionary, there's a picture of Joe Moore on there.
Smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, he was addicted to menthol. I mean, he'd have a menthol cough drop in his mouth and smoke a menthol cigarette. You know what? If I was around him right now, my chest would be clear because he was breathing that menthol in me. I'd be all set. But yeah, we were in practice, and we'd be over in the corner of the field, and he'd be during practice be smoking a square over there, just going ahead and he's like, "Hey, old man, looking." No, he ain't looking. Oh, good. He put it right behind his back. But here's a guy that taught you toughness, and he was a great technician and really knew the game. He wasn't more than 175, 180 pounds. He wasn't a mammoth man. He wasn't a young man at that time, but he knew how to coach. He knew how to get the best out of his players. He knew exactly what you needed to hear to get yourself prepared. And I owe everything to him because he's what made me into an NFL football player. Because when I was going into the combine and going into training camp, my technique and fundamentals were so much better than everybody else's because I was taught by the best. When people talk about offensive line coaches, you got McNally, who was with Cincinnati, you have Howard Mudd, who was with the Chiefs and with Seattle. But you also got to bring up Joe Moore, Alex Gibbs, and those kind of guys. There's a Mount Rushmore of offensive line coaches, and Joe Moore is on that Mount Rushmore.
That is great. So it's interesting. Can you? I know Aaron Taylor has done this huge push around. It's this beautiful lineman award, or it's something where like it's a traveling trophy that goes to a great offensive line. Can you explain a little bit about that? And I know Aaron talked about how his motivation for it was actually Coach Moore.
Yeah, and I think that Aaron has done a great job of kind of bringing attention to the college offensive lines. The 5 guys playing as one. That hand that turns into a fist. You got to have those guys all playing together, and it's really the ultimate team within a team. So he decided, hey, listen, you have the Heisman Trophy, you have the Maxwell Trophy, you have all these trophies for all these, the quarterbacks and running backs. We didn't really have anything for the linemen. Now you had the Remington Award, but that went to defense and offensive line. I think you even won it, didn't you? You won that award, didn't you? You won all the awards, but he decided, hey, listen, you know what? We're gonna have an award for those 5 guys. It's gonna be an award for that 5 guys. Notre Dame won it the very first year, and he actually took a cast of the players from a couple of years before, Aaron, and made the little characters on the trophy from the University of Notre Dame guys.
That's
and
awesome.
They won it like 3 years ago, and they had Nelson, and they had a bunch of really good football players on that team, Mustafa, and gosh, I'm drawing a blank on the guy who was with the 49ers now. And then you got Staley, who was with Baltimore now, the Ravens. They had an unbelievable offensive line. They won that award, but they're going to win it this year. This year's offensive line might be the best offensive line they've had there in a long, long time. They're really, really good. So that award may be coming back to Notre Dame. And it's a beautiful award. It's a huge award. It takes 5 guys to lift it.
I was going to say, it's huge and gigantic.
And that's the cool thing. It's on purpose because, one guy can't lift it. Just like one guy can't win that award. 2 guys can't lift it because 2 guys can't. 5 guys have to lift it because 5 guys win the award.
That is absolutely awesome. So we're going to answer one of these questions here from Captain Zofkis. He's a fan of the show. Tim, so I would love to hear your most embarrassing moment, maybe in practice or maybe even a game. I mean, but just kind of, do you remember?
Oh, I had a lot of embarrassing moments. I think probably my most embarrassing moment turned into it was more of a motivational and so if anybody knows the Kansas City Chiefs, when I was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs, a guy named Mike Webster was a center. And Mike Webster was a legendary center. He was probably the best center in the history of the NFL. He's in the Hall of Fame. And Mike really didn't want to play anymore. But when I came in, he's like, listen, my job is to get you ready to play center. Because, I never played center. I played guard.
Right.
They handed me a football, said, you're a center. And I said, okay, what do I do? Just get the ball to that guy and then go block somebody. All right. So the embarrassing moment, we were playing against the Denver Broncos on a Sunday night game. And I was going against a guy named Greg Cragen. I don't know if you remember Greg. Mm. But Greg was just a really fast, quick, strong guy, a lot like yourself. And he was just giving it to me in the first half. And I went through a tough time at this point. I lost my father a couple weeks before. I had surgery on my thumb. I had a big cast on my hand. And I was getting worked. I mean, I was getting beat. And all of a sudden, in the middle of a series, and you know this as well as I do, Chris, and everybody out there watching football knows that you never get replaced on the offensive line during the middle of the series. Okay? Right. So I'm standing out there, and it's like 2nd down and 8. And all of a sudden, I get a tap on my shoulder, and it's Webby. I'm like, what do you want? He goes, Marty wants to see you. I'm like, oops. He goes, I run off the field. He goes, take a break. So I'm sitting on the bench, and I'm like, man, this is it. I'm done. I'm getting cut. I just bought a house here. I'm getting cut. This is terrible. So I go into the locker room. This great, honest to God story. Go in the locker room, and right next to me, in the locker next to me is Mike Webster. And Mike starts taking his shoes off. And I think, well, he's going to get retaped or whatever. He's going to, maybe change his socks or something. And he takes off his shirt and shoulder pads. I'm looking over, and Marty looks over and goes, "Hey, Mike, what are you doing?" He goes, "I'm not playing anymore." He goes, "That's your center. I'm not playing anymore. You want somebody else, but you put him back in there." And at that point, Chris, and me, I woke up, and it was like Rocky 2.
Dude, I got the chills, man. Holy crap.
When Adrian wakes up and Rocky says, "Well, I don't have to fly. What do you want me to do?" He goes, "Win, Rocky, win." I was like, what are we waiting for? So,
oh, my God.
And I'll tell you, as God is my witness, man, I kicked the crap out of him in the second half. In fact, he got so mad at me in the fourth quarter. You know how I get. I was finished. I was throwing him. I was cutting him. I was doing everything I possibly could. And he threw a punch at me and got a 15-yard penalty. And at that point, I knew, man, I couldn't miss around. After the game, he says to me, "What happened to you?" I said, "Mike Webster stood up for me and said, you know what? This is my guy." And Chris, as God is my witness, that changed my life.
Wow.
You talk about people and little things in life that change your life. I could have gone either way. If I didn't have a guy like that, I could have started feeling sorry for myself, started pouting, got myself in a bad way, maybe thought that, hey, I'm not good enough to play this, but a guy like Mike Webster believed in me, it changed my life. So the most embarrassing moment, getting pulled out in the middle of the series, turned into the turning point of my life.
That's amazing, man. That is absolutely amazing. Well, Kathleen, thank you very much for that awesome question. You're talking about pivotal people in your life. Let's talk a little bit about Dean Brown.
Yeah.
For those of you guys who don't know, Dean was in your class. He was from Canton, Ohio, right?
Yep.
And it was just something about Dean that in the first 2 minutes of meeting him, you fell in love with him. And the idea that, I hated going up against him in practice, but seeing you guys together was just great. And it was great because there was this camaraderie that I can't even, I feel the same way about my best friend, Tim Ryan.
Yeah.
And just seeing you guys together, can you talk a little bit about kind of what Dean meant to you?
Oh, absolutely. So, listen, I grew up on the south side of Chicago. My father was a policeman. I grew up in an all-white neighborhood and a segregated neighborhood in Chicago. As you know, Chicago can be a segregated city. 4 or 5 blocks from where you live could be all African-American. 4 or 5 blocks where you live could be all Latinos or Latina. It could be Polish, it could be everything else. But I grew up in an all, basically policemen and firemen neighborhood. I didn't know any African-American people. I didn't know. I didn't go to high school with any black guys either. Nothing. So when I got to Notre Dame, the very first guy that I sat next to was Dean Brown. And we just started a special relationship. He changed my life. He changed the outlook of my whole life. Once again, you talk about people that transcend, make you into a better person. He taught me how to love. He taught me how to be the best person I could be. But to get to your answer, Dean and I did everything together. We worked out together in the summer. My dad told me that when I got a scholarship, he'd buy me any car I wanted. Now, within reason. But he bought me a 1975 yellow Cadillac Eldorado convertible. And Dean and I used to sit in that car and drive around campus.
Oh, my God.
It would be him and I with our sunglasses on, and we drive around campus, drive around town, go everywhere together in that car. So I'll never forget, he'd come to my neighborhood in the south side of Chicago, and people would slow down and look, there's a black guy in our neighborhood. And my dad would just get up, and I've never seen him as mad and angry. And it made me just full of pride that it even changed my father and changed my grandfather, changed everybody's mind. That's the way Dean was. So then later on, my senior year, I said, you know what, Dean? I'm going to go to Canton, Ohio. I'm going to go to your house. And Dean lived in the projects of Canton. And here comes this white dude walking around the projects of Canton. And we were walking down the streets, and it was just bad. People were slowing down and looking at me. And Dean said, "You don't worry about it. You're with me." And, I loved him. He was my best friend. Dean, people don't know that Dean came here and actually tried out, was with the Chiefs for a summer. He lived with me in the summer. So we had that relationship too. But, Dean changed who I was. I didn't know any better. I was ignorant. And, you talk about the racial relations and everything else we're working on right now in our country and our society. I look to relationships like I have with Dean Brown and know there's hope and know that this country can be better. Because if Dean and people like that can make this country and make me better, then this country, we can do it. But Dean Brown was my brother. Dean Brown was, when he passed away, it was like losing a family member. And I think about Dean just about every day. Whenever there's a tough decision I have to make, or whether I'm kind of down and out, I think about Dean. So I love him to death. And, we used to call him Bubba Dog, and we were the tight side, because we rotated together, right? I say, Bubba Dog, where we going? All right, let's go get him.
Oh my God.
We're going to rotate over here. And, and forget, Cortez Kennedy and all those guys. We would kick the crap out of those guys and loved it. We'd look at each other and say, You remember Dean? Mm-hmm. Wow. He was the best. So,
wow.
Great memories. Thanks for bringing them up.
No, absolutely. Well, it makes my heart feel good because you mentioned something before. It's not about the wins, it's not about the titles, it's about those relationships.
Yeah.
And although I was cool with Dean, watching you guys kind of hang out and be brothers from two totally different backgrounds.
Yep.
Just made I remember just hanging out, eating cafeteria. Just doing a lot of stuff and seeing you guys together, man. It was a great, as an outsider, seeing that relationship. Really was worth kind of my experience there because it was such a tight-knit group. Our team was such a tight-knit group. And to see the love and respect that you guys had, it was amazing. And it was something special that a lot of guys on the team didn't have. You guys are great.
Chris, I'm gonna bring up something I know you don't remember, but I remember it was yesterday. You remember when your mama passed away? You remember we were going to the Cotton Bowl, and we had to leave on Christmas Day. I don't know if you remember that, but we went to O'Hare Airport, and it was me and you and Joey Farrell, and we were walking through the terminal, and there was nobody there, and for some reason, it just seemed really dark, and it just seemed really like, man, oh man, like the first time ever away from my family on Christmas, and it was me and you and Joe, and we walked over and we sat at the terminal, waited for that plane to come in and thinking, oh my gosh, this is so weird. This is so real. But I felt a really familiar comfort because I knew I was with family and I was going to see family. And I'll never forget that because I know that might've been one of the first Christmases that you had without your mom.
Yeah.
And I know that you were feeling a little bit down and, we all just kind of had that special moment together. And that's what it's all about. And there's little moments like that, and a million times that you just whenever things are kind of down and out, you're not feeling great. You think back to some of those moments, some of those relationships, and I think back to that one too. Joey Farrell, who's a great buddy of both of ours, was a walk-on football player, never really played much, but just as important, if not more important, than anybody else on that football team.
It's funny that you bring that up. I haven't thought about that in years, Tim, honestly, man. And, it's amazing because, and I don't want people to think that Notre Dame is so special that these types of relationships can't happen anywhere else, because that is absolutely not true, okay?
Right.
But it's those types of relationships that I remember that make you want to work harder, right? So we didn't talk about a score. We didn't talk about a win. We didn't talk about somebody's check. We talked about guys who were normally would be with their families, but we worked hard. We became successful. So now we're in the situation and we're in there together. Yeah. And the fact that when I went to Notre Dame, I never spent a Thanksgiving by myself. With my mom. Yeah. I spent it with my team because we were either at Southern California, we were preparing for something. Yeah. And those moments are literally what makes me feel good, coupled with the relationships you have there. So I look at you and Dean, I look at me and Tim, I look at those relationships that if not for a crazy-ass decision, us deciding to go to Notre Dame and not Mizzou, or in Tim's case, going to Notre Dame and not Oklahoma, I mean, we wouldn't have those type of relationships. And so that's what's so great about being in an environment where there's pressure, there's expectations. I mean, all these things are good. They're damn good, because what it did, it brought our team together. But more importantly, we became this family that meant so much to me. So thank you for bringing that up. I do appreciate that. Yeah. We're going to take a small break, and we're going to have to kind of, I guess, acknowledge our sponsor here. So give me 1 second. You are listening to the Zorich Podcast with our guest, Tim Grunhard. If you'd like to watch this interview and our other interviews, please check out my YouTube page at Chris Zorich 50 and click subscribe. So we had a chance to win a national championship, which is amazing. But I remember hearing you talk about, and I think it was on Twitter or something like that, that after you win a national championship, you mentioned that we actually went back to the hotel and did something special. Can you kind of share with our audience what that was?
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you just brought that up, because that was the next thing I was going to go to, talking about relationships. And yeah, I mean, you think about what teams do now after national championships. And listen, I'm not saying that we did it better than anybody else. I'm not. But what we did was, and this was a good reflection of our coach. We went back and we went to Mass, and we sat there and we basically looked around, and we knew some of the guys who were sitting with us were never going to play football with us again. We knew that we did something really, really special. And to a man, you would think the guys were saying, "Nah, man, I want to go out and party. I want to go and hang out with my friends. I didn't want to be anywhere else but with my brothers." And for as hard as we worked that year, remember now, we weren't even ranked. I think we were out of the top 20. I think we were 23. I was the only offensive lineman that came back with any kind of game experience. I think I had 5 starts.
Right.
Dean didn't have any. Mike Brennan didn't have any. Tim Ryan didn't have any. Dean didn't have any at that point. Mike Helt didn't have any. So, we came together as a team, and it really started with that Michigan game where it took the smallest guy on our team to make the biggest plays in Reggie Ho, and then it just kept going and going and going. And Lou would always say, "You know what? If I put a 2x4 across a path that's 2 feet off the ground, you'd walk across that. You'd never think twice about it. If you put it way up 5 stories high, it's still the damn same 2x4. You can walk right across it. So don't let it get in your mind. If nothing's bigger, you can walk right across." And
that's true.
I mean, we decided, hey, listen, it was the same game, and then when that Miami game that was, it's the most special game that I've been around until really that Clemson game that I was sitting with my wife watching that game this year. That was as good. That was for me. It was just as good of a game. And then going ahead and winning that national championship and going back and sitting there and not to sound weird, but we are holding hands with the guys next to you and just praying together and becoming just a family at that point. And then we all dispersed and all did our things, but it was great that we had about 45 minutes to an hour just to kind of think about what we did, because you never have that back. That was the smartest thing that the coach ever did, because everything is so rushed and everything is so, all your time is eaten up. We were able to just sit back and take it all in and take a deep breath. And I thank him so much for that.
And I think that's literally, it's examples like that. And of course, you're 18, 19, 20 years old. You're like, man, we just want to ask, what the hell's going on? You walk in there, and it's like, oh, okay, this is real. Oh, okay, all right. And by far, it was one of the great experiences. And again, we had a lot of success when we were in there. And one of the things for me that makes Notre Dame so special when we were there was it was on game day. The fact that we met and had mass before the game, I thought was one of those kind of surreal moments that, and this was before every game, every home game. I think it was, what was that? It was like St. Ed's, or it was one of the dorms on the
Pangborn or
okay, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And I just remember this tiny packed church in a dorm.
Yeah.
And we all crowded in there. And at that time, I mean, there were coaches. I mean, that's really all. I mean, there may have been a couple of alums, or maybe the president of the university. I don't remember. But I could remember being just as quiet as a church mouse, looking around and just thinking about, like, man, I'm about to go to war with these guys, and I will give my left arm, I will give any, and then we had the match, and then Father Reilly would give us one of those itty bitty medallions.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
That I would string together on a shoelace and wear around my neck.
Yeah.
And I'm not even Catholic. I mean, I just had this great experience, and I feel those memories, and I forgot what games we played at home games, or whatever, but those memories of walking out of there and even walking to the stadium, I don't remember as much as being in mass with my teammates.
It's funny you bring up the little medals, because after every game, my dad wouldn't say, "Hey, great game," or "Hey, so proud of you." He'd say, "Where's the medal?"
Oh.
I gave him the medal after every game. So fast forward to just this year, Chris. I counted all the medals, and I had a medal from every game that I ever played in.
Wow. I got the chills, man. Oh my God.
I took those medals and I put them on a chain, and I gave it to my son.
Oh.
And now he puts it in his locker on game days. So our team is now that 4 years is now being represented at 2020 in Collins Locker. It's awesome. Wow. It's awesome. And
that's amazing, man. It's going to allow me to kind of roll into the next part of the interview was, all right, so Notre Dame, I mean, I'm sure at the time you didn't realize how special Notre Dame would be involved in your life, and 10, 15, 20 years later, right? So Sarah, who you met at Notre Dame, right?
Yeah.
So that's the crazy part.
The best thing that happened to me there.
So not winning the national championship.
No,
Chris, she's in the next room going, "You better say that. You better say that."
Hey, Chris, I'd be dead if it wasn't.
Well, I mean, so let's talk about how crazy this is. Like, I mean, she has a special relationship with Notre Dame as well.
And she had a special relationship with a lot of guys on the team, especially Dean and just all the different guys on the team. But yeah, she does. And you know what? We were blessed that, when we go back, I always thought it'd be funny to, bring your wife or your girlfriend or somebody back to the school, and you're trying to explain how special it is. And they think they understand, but they really don't know. But she knows, remember now, my daughter, who earned a letter in swimming, is now fourth generation Notre Dame letterman.
Okay, so you have to explain the fourth generation part.
Well, Sarah's grandfather was an All-American pole vaulter and also a world record holder in the pole vault at Notre Dame. And then her father was a pole vaulter also at Notre Dame, was a letterman. Then I was a letterman, and then now my daughter Kaylee, who is a 2-year letterman in swimming, and calling to get his letter jacket this year. So it's really a special thing for us, and the relationship that we have in 4 generations. And Kaylee was this close to being. We almost had 4 generation Notre Dame All-Americans. So we're hoping that she gets it this year. Yeah. Wow.
Okay. So we'll pause on that for a second. So what's the feeling that in Notre Dame's the Joyce Center on campus, there's an area on the second floor where they have like a gazillion names on the wall. And that represents kind of monogram winners over the years. So literally you've been able to kind of look at like, your wife's family, their name, your name, and then now, in 9 years, your name's going to be up there again.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's all these different generations from 1920s to 1950s to the 1980s to the 2020s. So it's really cool.
That is absolutely
we're pretty blessed. Pretty blessed.
Okay,
and
so
to me it's about the tradition of the school and how important it was for the sacrifice of a lot of people to get us there, Chris. You know that a lot of people sacrificed a lot to get us to where we were at.
So now your oldest son graduated from Notre Dame, and you have twins now that are there, correct?
My oldest son graduated last year.
Okay.
Actually, 2 years ago. 2 years ago. He's working for Louis Dreyfus as a commodities exchange, and he graduated. And then I have twins that are seniors this year. And then I have a daughter who's at St. Louis University becoming a nurse. So, yeah, it's some great, Chris, we had 4 kids under 4. So,
well, I was going to say that. I was like, well, hold on, man. Like, back up a little bit. What the hell is that, man?
I don't know what
happened. It has to be insane.
Something broke loose or something.
Well, okay. So the idea that, and I'm even talking about, well, let's call CJ first. I mean, was it kind of pressure? Did he feel pressure to, hey, I want to go to Notre Dame. I want to go to, what about Kansas? I mean, the idea that, hey, do I have to go to Notre Dame? I mean, sports or whatever. I'm just talking about in general.
Yeah. CJ was always wanted to go to Notre Dame. He was a very, very good student, like his mom, Chris, not like his dad, like his mom. And, so we knew that he had to get, 33, 34 on the ACT to get in.
Right.
And, it's getting harder and harder to get into that school. And even though that he'd be a 4th generation student there, when he got that 34 on the ACT, I'll never forget, because I was coaching the team at Miege and walked in with the letter that said he got it. And we knew that was kind of the key to get in. He was so excited and so happy. It was for him. It was the key to go to Notre Dame. And then, the crazy thing is that Kaylee always really wanted to go to Notre Dame too. And she's a very, very good student. So when she committed to swim when she was a sophomore. And Colin had some scholarships from different places, but, didn't get a scholarship at Notre Dame until, he earned one. And then I thought there's no way that he's going to follow his sister to Notre Dame. I thought there's no way that, they went to grade school together. They went to high school together. And now all of a sudden, they're not going to college together. There's no way. And he said, hey, as long as you're going to, if you're willing to pay for it, I'd like to go and try and go to Notre Dame. And I'll never forget, we met with Coach Kelly, and I'll give Coach Kelly a lot of credit for this. And he sat down with us at a game. He didn't need to do that. He was a walk-on football player. And he said, listen, he said, Colin's not like a normal walk-on. We really want Colin to come here. He's going to have a chance to play. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Coach.
Right.
But you know what? He's played every year that he's been there. He's been on the field, and he's done a great job, and so proud of him. And he's made so many great friends. Chris, it hasn't changed. The relationships and the bonds of these guys that we built and have still to this day, he's building right now. So, we're so lucky that we built those bonds, and they're doing it too. And, to play for Notre Dame, man, just to go out in the field and put that helmet on and stand across from and have the old Pepper giving us, hey, old Pepper, get the old Pepper. I still have, and people don't know that there was an old guy that basically, I think he was doing it since, back with Rockney, maybe.
Seriously.
This guy was in his 90s, and every player, he'd go, give him the old Pepper, give him the old Pepper. And we go out and just standing on that sideline, looking around at those students, looking around at those alumni, looking around at those fans, and realizing where we were at. Now, listen, we only played in front of 56,000 people, and now they have 80,000 people. But I'll promise you that place was as loud and proud back to 56,000 people than it even is today. So a lot of great fans, a lot of great memories. And And, if there's no one particular game that you can, think about. Obviously the Miami game was special. But my favorite game was we were playing Colorado and we watched it again together a couple months ago. And you guys made that goal line stand, man. That was one of the best goal line stands of all time. And you were destroying people. But, Joe Moore, you're talking about Joe Moore. We had about 11 minutes left in the game. And remember, they were number one, and they had a great defense. And Joe Moore said,
Jesus.
Yeah, he said, all right, listen, you son of bitches. You get on that field. I don't want to see you for another 9 or 10 minutes. Go score a touchdown. And we literally ran the ball every play, 19 plays down the field and scored. And we took up like 9 minutes of that game. And that was my favorite drive, one of my favorite games. And, those are great games to think about.
So the idea that your son is kind of putting on the pads the same place you were when I was kind of hanging out on your Twitter page. It was actually your wife's page. I think I saw this on. But somebody was filming when they announced that he actually earned a scholarship.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've seen it 1,000 times. Can you kind of walk us through what a dad, somebody who's spent, not necessarily in that meeting room, but spent blood, sweat, and tears in that environment, and all of a sudden, your son's a walk on, and then he has a chance, and then literally he's on Scott. Like, what was that? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, it was one of the prouder moments of my life, and because he told me that, Dad, I want to just have an opportunity to show him what I could do, and then as a dad, he had the gumption, had the fortitude to say, hey, listen, I'm going to go do it, and it makes you so proud. But when it happened on Christmas Day.
Okay.
And we were at Mass, all of us, but Colin, obviously, he was with his team,
right?
Like what always happens, you're always with your team,
right?
And so we're in the middle of Mass, and we're doing that. So we come out, and our phones are blowing up. Obviously, we had the phones in the car. We didn't bring phones in the Mass. In the car. And my daughter said, hey, something happened to Colin. This is Kaylee, the twin.
Right.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't know. That somebody said the congratulations to Colin. And we're like, what are they talking about? So she went and searched it. And all of a sudden there was a video. And we sat in the car in the parking lot of the church and watched that video. And all of us were crying. It was awesome. It was great. And listen, if that happened, and that's great. And I'm really happy for him. I'm happy for me. It saved me some money. But really, if it never would have happened, it would have all been worth it. You know what? You're trying to give your kids the best opportunity to have success.
Right.
Whatever you do, you want to put them in the right position to be around the right kind of people, to have the right kind of leadership, and become the kind of people that you hope they are, and great members of society. And we've been blessed with that with our kids. We have our rebel Cassie, who went to SLU. She said, and she's the youngest, typical youngest. She's like, you know what? I'm not going to that school. You guys all, and then she'll say, you guys talk about Notre Dame again, but she's doing her own thing, and she's just a great, special person. And we've been really blessed, Chris, and Sarah and I. As we get in the car and we drive to South Bend every weekend.
I was going to say that. I can't even imagine how many miles you guys put on the car.
9 hours there, 9 hours back. And, we also do it for swim meets. And then we also do it for, if there's special events. So, we have a lot of time to reflect and think about how blessed we are and how lucky we are. And we also have a lot of time to really get in each other's hair too, driving around down in Southern Illinois, by Springfield, Illinois on I-55. We have plenty of time to pick at each other, but it really has built our relationship. And we say it all the time. We always make it a point of emphasis to take our dogs. And we have a little condo off campus, and we take our dogs and we walk campus at least one time And we always say, isn't it great that we know every one of these buildings and we have stories about every one of these places? And we always go back to the first place I gave her a kiss over my lease hall.
Of course.
And all those kind of things. So it's great. It's been awesome. I'm going to miss it because it's coming to an end. But everything comes to an end. All great things come to an end. But you always have those memories and always have that love of the relationships that you built.
Well, there's another question coming up, but before we get to that, I saw again. I don't want you to think I'm stalking you on Twitter or anything, but I saw a photo of you and Sarah at the game, against Clemson. So, I mean, obviously, I don't know if you guys stormed the field, but it was in the background. But just kind of tell us. I mean, I saw it on TV. What was it like being there?
Chris, it was awesome. I've been to a lot of football games in that stadium, played in a lot of football games in that stadium. And I told you, Miami is still my favorite game. But that's a close one. I mean, Clemson came out the number one team. And, they looked like professional players out there against our kids. And they just played inspired football. They played great. And, so it's funny you bring that up about storming the field. So Cassie was there with her friend.
Okay. And
we were sitting in the stands, and of course I'm married to the rule follower. Wear your mask. You better wear your mask.
Of course.
They told you not to storm the field. You're not storming the field. So I said, hey, Cassie said, Dad, I'm going to go run, or Mom, I'm going to go run on the field. And she's like, no, you're not. You're a nursing student. You can't go down the field. You may get COVID. If you go down the field, you're going to miss your. I said, go down on the field. So she ran down on the field, and so she wasn't mad, but she said, go down the field. Go down there. They took pictures down there and everything else, and then ran back up. But, we took that picture, and it was a great picture in the background. It had the mask on. You always remember that. And you look back, and it was a sea humanity. Chris, I have never seen – and there wasn't a lot of people there, and it almost made it even more surreal because it looked like a bunch of green ants crawling down from the top of the stadium, just coming and swarming down. And then when the game was over, it just exploded onto the field. And I know they weren't supposed to do it, and I know it probably broke the rules, but I'll tell you what, it was really, really cool to see.
Oh, that had to be amazing.
Cool.
Thank you for sharing that with us. So we have a question from Jerry. And this is for you and your long snapping abilities. So basically it's Tim, as a long snapper, you always seem to be the first one down covering a punt, which was amazing. So jokingly, he said, how slow is the rest of the punt coverage team?
I used to be an athlete, Jerry.
Which was so cool because it was great because here you had this huge guy, like literally – and I mean, do you remember how many tackles that you made? I mean, oftentimes you're the first one down.
You know what? That was my favorite thing to do. These guys nowadays, they got these specialists with snapping. I was in the middle of a series and I'd be, please get a first down. So I had to take my gloves off.
I remember that. Yep. I mean, you talked. I remember that. You talked.
Yep. And I punt snapped my whole career there. And then thank God towards the end, somebody short snapped. I think my senior year, I got out of that one. But you know what? I loved it. And it was my way to get seen. Just like you in practice, you did something so that people would notice you. When I was a young offensive lineman, my freshman year, I started at long snapper, and I said, you know what, I snapped it and I ran as fast as I possibly could to get down there, and then became a thing. It became the thing that I do. And
absolutely,
you can't stop. So, then they're like, "Oh, boy, Grunhard's lazy now. Look at this." This fat ass won't run down the field now, but he did when he was a young kid. Now he's a big fat ass. He can't run down the field. So I had to do it my whole career, unless people be like, "Oh, look how lazy he is now." But I'll never forget that we were playing against Miami my sophomore year in the Orange Bowl.
Right.
And I snapped, and all of a sudden, two guys came and just laid me out the whole time. They said, and I'll never forget, I talked to Mike Sullivan. I don't know if you remember Mike. Mike went to
St. Francis.
Sale.
Yep.
And he told me that Jerry Johnson said, Coach Johnson said, excuse me, he said, listen, don't let that 75 run down the field. We are not letting him tackle our guy.
Oh, my God. That's hilarious. Wow. Jerry, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm sure Tim enjoyed that as well. So, all right. So let's kind of fast forward a little bit. You have a chance to get drafted by Kansas City Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what was that like? I know it's different. It was a different time for us, but what was it like being drafted in the NFL? Did you get a phone call? Were you at home? I mean, what was that process?
Well, during the whole process, they weren't really sure what I was going to be. A lot of teams wanted me to play center, a lot to play guard. So I went to the combine. Dean and I we flew to the combine. You talk about how you flew from Chicago to Champaign. We flew down there because we said, you know what, if they're paying for it, we're just going to, take a half hour to get down there. so we flew down there, and I had a pretty decent combine and worked out for some teams, but nobody was quite sure what I was going to be. So I was predicted to be a 6th or 7th round draft choice. And I'll never forget, I flew out to Tampa Bay and worked out for them. I flew to Washington and worked out for them. And then I flew to the 49ers. Okay. And a coach by the name Bob McKittrick was the offensive line coach. And I went in and I said, well, we're working out. No, you don't have to work out. We're just going to, visit with you and talk to you and all that kind of stuff. So we're sitting there, we're talking. And there was a bunch of big-time offensive linemen there. I can't remember their names exactly, but they were all first-round guys. And Bob says to me, he goes, you know what, we're going to draft you in the first round. I said, what? He goes, yep, we need a center. We want to bring you in here. You're our guy. We're going to draft you in the first round.
Wow. And
I was like, holy cow. I mean, it's a guy, literally his 5th or 6th or 7th round projection. And I flew home and I told my parents, I said, I'm getting drafted by the 49ers. And I'm going to be in the first round. And they're like, oh, my gosh, that's great. Blah, blah. Oh, San Francisco's such a long way away. Oh, no, I love it. So draft day comes around. And my parents sold the house I grew up in. So they had this little rental house. Okay. And so we had all these people there. And I wasn't really sure what the phone number was, Chris. We had landlines then, right?
Right.
We didn't have cell phones. So they said, oh, we're going to call you on game day, or on draft day, to make sure you're at the right number. Because I told them, I was like, yeah, I'm not really sure the number. So I gave them that, and they called. They said, okay, hi, this is, I think it was Bob Seifert. He was, I just want to make sure this is your number. Get ready. We're going to draft you with the 31st pick in the first round. They won the Super Bowl the year before. So I'm thinking, all right, here we go. I'm sitting there, and the draft keeps going and going, and all of a sudden, with the 31st pick, the San Francisco 49ers take Dexter Carter from Florida State. And I'm like, nope. And then they called me right away, like, you know what, we didn't know he was going to be there. We think we still get you in the second round. We're still going to draft you. He's going to, don't worry about it. I was like, dude, don't worry about it. I'm good. The second round's good too. So literally 45 minutes later, I get a phone call, and I thought it was one of my buddies. You have to draft it.
Right, exactly.
Don't call here. So I answered the phone. They're like, this is Carl Peterson from the Kansas City Chiefs. We just drafted you the 40th pick in the draft. I said, oh, okay. I was like, really? And like, great. I mean, I never talked to the Chiefs, never.
Wow.
Chris, I didn't even know where Kansas City was.
Wow.
I wasn't sure whether it was in Kansas or Missouri. I was like, yeah. And to be brutally honest with you, I still don't know. So I literally, Sarah and she was there, and I'm like, look, get the map out. Where the hell is Kansas City?
Oh my God.
Is it by Denver? Is it up by Minneapolis?
That's hilarious.
We looked and we found it, and the next day I flew out to Kansas City and did a press conference deal, and Percy Snow was the first round.
Yeah.
Percy.
Oh yeah.
And Percy and I didn't like each other at all either. Why is it everybody always put me with roommates that didn't like me?
Right.
I'm surprised you and I were never roommates. So Percy and I were together and all that kind of stuff, and the rest is history. Fell in love with Kansas City. I love the town. I love the people here. They've been great to me. I've tried to do things for them. And
sure. Hold on one
like,
second, Tim. So I do want to talk about, and I might be kind of tough for you, but your first year in the league, your dad passed away.
Right.
I mean, so what? I mean,
tough.
You know, and I think you wound up. Did you play like the next couple weeks, or what was that situation? Or did you go back home?
My father passed away on a Thursday, and Marty said, "Listen, you're not playing. You're going to go be with your family." We were playing the Raiders, and I was bumming out, man, and I wanted to be with my teammates and all that. But Chris, you'll love this one. My dad came to one football game. He was dying of cancer, and he came to the opening day against Minnesota Vikings. And he's sitting up there, and here's Arrowhead Stadium with, the 77,000 people dressed in red and screaming and yelling. It's crazy, and people, the pro atmosphere, all that kind of stuff. And I get out, and I'm feeling pretty good. We won the game. I'm feeling pretty good. But I played. It was great because after the second series, I was put in for the rest of the game, and then the next game I went after the first series, and I started the rest of my career there. And then so I come out and I said, "Dad, what do you think?" He's like, "It's not Notre Dame."
Are you serious? Oh my God!
That's good. I'm glad you're playing, but not Notre Dame.
Oh,
and you know what? He was right.
Wow.
It wasn't Notre Dame. He loved Notre Dame. And you know what? The gift that he gave me was to making it for those 4 years in Notre Dame. And he also gave me a gift to come to one NFL game. But it was Notre Dame for him. And that's what he wanted. That's what he loved. And he knew that I had to make a living, and he knew I had to play football and all that kind of stuff. But it was Notre Dame. That was his love. And I always remember that. And you know what? And he was right. And Notre Dame, if I had to pick, I would go back and play one more Notre Dame football game.
That really means a lot, considering we're above 50. So, so you literally from not knowing where Kansas City is on the map to being like Mr. KC. So you're involved in my community. You have a radio show. I mean, tell me how. And I don't want to take your 11-year career for man, I don't want to skip over that. Yeah. But you're really involved in the community there. And I mean, can you tell us a little bit about what you've done and what your family has done? Because like literally, I mean, Kansas City is like your first or second home. I mean, I know Chicago is, but I mean, people in Kansas City love you.
Yeah, no, I love them too. And I was lucky that about my second or third year in the league is when the Kansas City Chiefs really exploded. And Bill Moss, who played nose tackle for us, he got traded to the Green Bay, and he had a radio show down at the Levee, which was a place kind of in the fun bar and restaurant district in Kansas City.
Okay.
And I would be on his show, and just being me, being goofy, having fun, and people liked when I went on the show. So fast forward, as soon as he left, they said, "Hey, would you like to take over this show?" And it became kind of a cult following, where really for the next 8 years, people would line up. And it wasn't just because of me. It really wasn't. And I'm not this is not a humble brag, but they would line up at noon to get into this show on Thursdays. And we would bring Joe Montana in and Marcus Allen in, and everybody would come and everybody would be there. And it was the place to be. And that kind of started the relationship we had. And I always thought, listen, I was always a fan. I'm gonna give you a quick story, and this is not a slight on Walter Payton, because I got to meet Walter a long time after this happened to me at Evergreen Park Mall. I went to get an autograph.
Wow!
You remember Evergreen Park Mall?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right on 95th and Western.
Yeah, absolutely. I went to get an autograph from Walter, and I was so excited. And I went up, and it was towards the end, and it was just kind of like he kind of signed it, and we didn't even look up, and it was kind of disappointing. I'm like, man, I waited, and I love this guy, and he's my favorite player. And I said, you know what? If I ever in that position, I'm always going to at least give a little bit of, how you doing?
Sure.
Thanks for coming.
Sure.
Acknowledgement. But I met Walter. I'm not ripping Walter, because I'm sure it was a long day, and I was just a little fat kid from the south side of Chicago. So So I built a relationship with the fans of Kansas City because I'm a fan. I'm a fan of football. I love football. I told people on the radio show today, I said, listen, my job doing radio is to make them enjoy the game more by giving them some X's and O's, talking about the Jimmies and Joes, talking about fundamental techniques, pulling you behind the curtain and telling you what's kind of going on in the locker room, some psychological things. And so if you can watch the game and enjoy the game more, I did my job. And so that's kind of what I've tried to do with people at Kansas City. And I've been lucky, I'm involved with the Kansas City Chief Ambassadors, and I've been the president the last 3 years. And we do a lot of work with schools and hospitals and doing different charitable works. But I also did some stuff for the Cancer Society here. I've been involved with First Down for Down syndrome, which was the offensive line. Was kind of the spearhead of that when I first got there, and I kind of took that over. So I've been lucky to be involved with a lot of great charities. But you know what? The people here in Kansas City, a lot like Chicago, they're Midwestern people. They got big hearts. They're lovely, lovely people. They care about their athletes. And you know what? I have never felt uncomfortable in Kansas City. You know what? They come up and say hello and everything else, but nobody's ever, been over the top or bombastic or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
They let you be who you are. Right. And, I've made some mistakes here in Kansas City. I've done some good things and I've done some bad things.
Sure.
They forgave me for the bad things, and they welcome me for the good things. And that's why I love them. And that's why this is my home. This will always be my home. My kids were born here. They love Kansas City. My daughter's moving to Cincinnati. She got a job in Cincinnati. My son's going to be in Connecticut. My other daughter's probably going to be in St. Louis. And then Colin, we'll see what happens with Colin. But I will be in Kansas City. This is my home. Yep.
That is terrific. So we're skipping around a little bit, but tell us a little bit about your coaching career. I mean, did you love the game that much? Did you decide, hey, I have all this knowledge, I got to impart this on these kids? I mean, did you? And by the way, again, doing my research, a religion teacher? Where did that come from? Because what you used to call me back in Notre Dame, there was no religion there. Absolutely none. So I want to know how that happened.
I'm Forrest Gump. I've worn lots of shoes. No. In order to be the head coach at a school, you had to be a teacher, and I didn't have my teacher certificate. So the only thing that you could teach without a teacher certificate is religion. I said, I went to 9 years of grade school, Catholic school. I went to 4 years of high school. I went to 4 years of college. I know my way around the good book. Let's go do it.
Oh,
so yeah, I did that for 5 years. I was a head coach there for 6 years. And then I went to University of Kansas with Charlie Weiss and almost killed myself, literally, with overwork and losing football games and just being miserable. I thank Charlie for giving me the opportunity. I always wanted to do it, but gosh, I'm glad I'm not doing it anymore. I loved coaching high school. And, I coached high school for 4 more years after that. I coached my kids in high school. And Chris, I haven't said I'll never coach high school again. I probably will. I decided to quit a couple of years ago so I can enjoy my kids playing their sports, going to swim meets and going to college games. But I'll probably get back into coaching again because I really enjoy it. I think if you could take a kid and give them some guidance and give them some tools in order to either get a scholarship to go play football or just become a better person. Football is a microcosm of life, man. We all have fourth down situations in life that we got to convert. And, we all have tough times and we're all behind. And if you could teach a kid not to give up, teach a kid to go ahead and give themselves the best opportunity to have success on the field and do things they think they can't do, that equates into life. Maybe when they're, having a problem with their wife later on in life, they think back to some of the lessons they learned in football and they say, you know what, maybe I can get through this. Maybe I can convert this and not punt. So those are the things that I hope that I can teach the kids. And I love the game, man. It doesn't matter whether there's 500 people in the stands or 50,000 people in the stands. It's still the same game, man. That football, those white lines and those goalposts and just the toughness and the enthusiasm of the guys playing that game. Boy, it's a work of art. I really love it.
So as a coach, I mean, did you ever think that, and I'm sure you've imparted some of Joe Moore's knowledge on these kids, Coach Holtz's knowledge, but as a player, I'm sure you cursed Joe Moore as much as anybody else did, and I did the same thing with Holtz, right? But then also later, you're like trying to teach kids these life lessons that you heard from these coaches, but sometimes didn't pay attention to because they were pissing you off. I mean, was that kind of like a moment where you're like, oh my God, I've become Coach Moore, or I've become Coach Holtz?
Yeah, there is a moment where you look and you're like, oh my God, these kids they don't like me as much as I didn't like them. But if you can get just a couple things across, and and you give them just a couple of tools to have success, and they may not have success on the football field, but we all have a lot of life after football. There's a great philosopher, and this is Mike Webster, the great philosopher, said football, everybody plays football, it ends for some sooner than others, but it ends,
right?
And there's a lot of life after that. So I'm hoping that you can give examples and give tools for people to have success in their life, in their relationships, and in their communities, and at their jobs, and all those kind of things, so that they can take some of those lessons. I love coaching. I love being around the kids. It keeps you young. I love the excitement of the game. I love the excitement of Friday nights. I still get you still get those butterflies like you did when you're playing, Chris. I mean,
wow.
I think it's worse because you have no control. Chris, it's like being on an airplane. Why are you afraid on the airplane? Because you're not in control.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
That's the only reason you're afraid. And it's the same thing as a coach. You're like, man, I know if I can affect this as a player, but as a coach, you got to give them the keys and say, go ahead and do it.
Wow.
And it's such a weird, humbling feeling to know that, okay, you got them prepared as much as you can, but now they've got to go do it. And being a control freak like most of us are, that's hard to do.
Oh, I could imagine. I can't even imagine. I mean, so I want to applaud you for, being a high school coach, right? I mean, there's absolutely no money in it. There's crazy sacrifices on your time, but the rewards that you'll see, and not even championships, but like 5-10 years later, when these kids start coming back, or they start sending you notes, and they start sending you pictures of the Christmas card with the family. I mean, those are the instances that a lot of folks may not understand, where coaches come in, where there's no banner, no sign that says, hey, here's a great coach. These are lessons that you hope a kid takes who may have been on the team for 1 year, like you said, who may not have played very well, but had a chance to listen to you. And that's what I think. One of the most, we've had a chance to be around some great coaches. The most impressionable coach in my life was my high school football coach. So I want to thank you, being a former high school football player, to thank you. And I'm sure you hear it a lot, but really, thanking you for making that sacrifice, making the sacrifice your family has to make as well, because being a high school coach literally is only gratifying for you. There's no other glory in that except for that you have a chance to impart some wisdom on a bunch of kids.
Yeah, it's a humbling job. You're right. It's a lot of time. I've been a head coach, and I've been an assistant coach. I like being an assistant coach a lot better. Everybody gets the ego that wants to be the head coach. Not this guy. It's great. You know what, Chris? When you see a kid who comes in, maybe a little shy, a little timid, a little scared, and thinks he can't do something, and then he proves himself wrong and does something, there's no better thing than that. And Chris, I've learned too, and this is the story for everybody out there. The big kids, guys like you and I, we were told our whole lives, be careful, you're going to hurt somebody.
Right.
Be careful, you're going to hurt somebody. So those kids, when they come to high school football, those big kids, what do? They be careful. They don't want to hurt anybody. So you have to get that out of them in the right way. You don't want to turn them into some kind of maniac, right? But you got to get that out of them, and to kind of turn that around and say, hey, it's okay to be aggressive in the right way. It's okay to play this game physically in the right way. And it's okay to, if you hit somebody and knock them down, to pick them up and pat them on the back, and that's okay. But to get a big kid who's been, his whole life has been told, his whole life, be careful, you're going to hurt somebody. Right. To get them to kind of let go a little bit. Those are especially as offensive, defensive line. Those are the gratifying things. And then you give them an opportunity to use football as a vehicle. I always told my kids, and I'm talking about my football players, there's a program out there for everybody. You want to play football in college? You can play football in college. There's a program. I don't care how big you are. I don't care how talented you are. There's a program out there. And I always tell them, if you play a college sport, you're going to have a much better chance of graduating, much better chance of learning, time management and building these bonds and relationships. Yeah, it's hard. And yeah, you might not be, if you're playing for a small school like a Benedictine college in Kansas, or you're playing for, Alabama, the time constraints are still the same for those kids. Right. And, they don't get the accolades and all those things, but it's so important for those kids because they learn about time management and doing things, and they give themselves an opportunity to have success in the classroom too.
That's, it's interesting to hear it from someone who's had your level of success. Okay. So you've had a chance to win championships. You've had a great NFL career, and literally you kind of boiled it down to, as a coach, doing what's right, working hard and being proud of yourself. And I think that's what's interesting when you talk about like high school football, mainly. Everybody's not going to go get a scholarship. Mm-hmm. And so you're talking about life lessons that you learn, that you're teaching these kids that we learned from our high school coaches, from other coaches. But I'm just talking about, the fact that you spent so much time and you had success in high school, which is great.
Well, Chris, we took a lot of that work ethic that we had at the law office in Chicago when we were working together.
You're so bad. You are so bad. So bad. So what Tim is talking about, I will not name the law firm, but we had a summer job, and it was interesting because at that time, you can get the hookup for Notre Dame, and I was terrified of working construction because I didn't want to get my ass beat, in the sweltering sun, and we wound up getting a cush job at this law firm where we were delivering mail and doing other things, mainly in the basement, hanging out in the basement.
We showed up the first day, we went up to the office, and they brought us down to the basement and said, stay down here and don't come out.
Right, and they were like, okay, stay down here and file these things. We're like, file? What? Yeah, it was an amazing
we
experience.
Slept until lunch, and then we went to lunch and then slept until
Right.
My gosh.
But I didn't want to do construction, so I was terrified of that. So not at all.
We learned work ethic from that job, though.
Absolutely, we did. Well, Tim, we unfortunately actually went over the hour, so I do apologize about that.
That's okay.
But literally, dude, it was like taking a stroll down memory lane, and there are a lot of things that I had forgotten about that you brought up, but. It just talks about kind of, you mentioned it before, the kind of special bonds that happen in these types of environments. So I'm very, very thankful for that. But I do want to end on one thing, and I always talk about this when I'm talking to folks. Not what can you define leadership? What does leadership mean to you? And I think it's important because you've had a chance to experience it on so many different levels. You've had a chance to be around some great coaches. You've had crazy success. but you also have to break down kind of what you learned to a 12, 15-year-old kid, to a young kid who's in high school. So what does leadership mean to you?
It's funny, and I don't want to be cliche-ish here, but I'm going to go back to Coach Holtz. And one of the things that I try to do every day, and one of the things I always told my guys, and it's every day, it's pride, personal responsibility, and daily excellence. Everything you do, you got to have pride in. When you wake up in the morning, when you're brushing your teeth, better have pride in it. When you're driving to work and you're going to do something, have pride in what you're doing. I think leadership is you lead by example. A lot of people can lead by saying, the right things or trying to spout out cliches and all those kind of things. But you have to have pride in what you're doing, and then other people feed off of that. So like Lou used to say, pride is personal responsibility and daily excellence. And I try to do that in everything I do, Chris. And thanks to guys like you, and thanks to guys like Dean, and thanks to all my teammates, I was able to learn how to do that. And you guys gave me the tools to have the kind of success I've had. I'll never thank you guys enough. The relationships that we built and the people that we were around and the love and the trust and commitment that we had was just so special. And I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of what you've done in your life. I'm proud of you doing this show and bringing, all kinds of great memories to people and giving them some smiles and giving them, some hope and giving them some things to think about. And this is great, man. And you know what? I know you have pride in everything you do. You have personal responsibility, daily excellence, everything you do. And for everybody out there, Notre Dame, the experience I had at Notre Dame, it was just 4 years, but it was the best 4 years. All the great things in my life all kind of focused back to the University of Notre Dame. And I can't thank Lou Holtz, and I can't thank the university, and I can't thank all my teammates and the people that are around me at Notre Dame enough. And I can't thank my mom and dad enough to give me the opportunity to go there.
That is beautiful, man. That is absolutely terrific. And it just goes to show you, and obviously, I'm a homer, but the idea of how special a place can be when, they literally plucked us out of the south side of Chicago, threw us in an environment that you and I were not used to, and look what happened. And it's just amazing because, if you chose to go to Mizzou, you would have had a great life. It would have been different, but you would have had a great life, right? And so the idea that all this happened for some reason, and you're able to meet your wife. Come on, you have your kids go. It's an amazing kind of experience. And anytime I have a chance to kind of toot Notre Dame's horn, I do. But the idea that, Notre Dame is a great place, but it's the people there that make the place special. And I'm sure both kids, all the kids that went there are going to understand that, because it's not the brick and mortar, it's the people that are there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the spirit. It's that lady on the dome. And
Chucker, the lady on the dome, Chucker.
You know what? We'll end on this one, Chris. And I know my mom is watching, and she was all excited that you were doing the show. So she used to say, the Blessed Mother is watching you and Sarah on campus, so you better be doing the right things. And I would say to her, you know what, Mom? Lewis Hall's behind her back, and she can't turn around up there.
Oh my God, man. That's awesome, man. That is awesome. It's been a great ride, man. Thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it. But more importantly, it was great catching up. But literally, this is what we didn't, and I apologize, we didn't spend that much time talking about your career in the NFL. But I want to respect your time, but a lot of it was, stories about Dean, the stories about Joe Moore. These are stories that people don't have a chance to see.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you had some great, awesome stories at KC, but the idea that you had a chance, you were a young kid, kind of trying to mature, trying to become the person you are now. And these were formative years. Yeah. And, I learned some things about Dean that I didn't know. So it was just great to hear everything.
Yeah, it's been great. It was a great experience. And, all those people did form who I am. And every day I thank God for the opportunity to have you guys in my life.
That is awesome, man. All right, brother. Love you, man. And I'm going to
right.
roll the credits now, but please hang on after we go off.
You got it, Chris.
All right, brother.